Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times, a Prancing Pony podcast production. I'm the Man of the West, and it's time to get week 80 underway with another Middle-earth Map Monday. Now, last week we journeyed with the three hunters to the very eaves of Fangorn Forest. Today we move south from there to the capital of Rohan, Edoras, and if there's time, to the Hall of its Kings, Meduseld. Now, we pick up with the three hunters, now having been reunited with Gandalf the White. They're all on horseback and ready to ride. Gandalf spoke now to Shadowfax, and the horse set off at a good pace, yet not beyond the measure of the others. After a little while, he turned suddenly, and choosing a place where the banks were lower, he waded the river, and then led them away due south into a flat land, treeless and wide. The wind went like gray waves through the endless miles of grass. There was no sign of road or track, but Shadowfax did not stay or falter.
"He is steering a straight course now for the halls of Theoden, under the slopes of the White Mountains," said Gandalf. "It will be quicker so. The ground is firmer in the east Emnet, where the chief northward track lies, across the river, but Shadowfax knows the way through every fen and hollow."
For many hours they rode on through the meads and riverlands. Often the grass was so high that it reached above the knees of the riders, and their steeds seemed to be swimming in a gray-green sea. They came upon many hidden pools and broad acres of sedge waving above wet and treacherous bogs, but Shadowfax found the way, and the other horses followed in his swath. Slowly the sun fell from the sky down into the west. Looking out over the great plain, far away, the riders saw it for a moment like a red fire sinking into the grass. Low upon the edge of sight, shoulders of the mountains glinted red upon either side. A smoke seemed to rise up and darken the sun's disk to the hue of blood, as if it had kindled the grass as it passed down under the rim of earth.
"There lies the Gap of Rohan," said Gandalf. "It is now almost due west of us. That way lies Isengard."
But they, and we, won't be going to Isengard, folks, at least not yet. We'll be continuing due south towards Edoras. Still, you've now gotten a feel for the land between Fangorn and Edoras. It's wetter here, thanks to the Entwash and the way that it turns due south. It's flat. There are no downs like we saw in the West Emnet on the other side of the river, but also no roads or tracks. It's a good thing they're following Shadowfax. Now, we pick up now shortly after the next chapter begins. They've grabbed a few hours' rest in the middle of the night before riding again in the dark as the moon sank. Then we read, "Slowly in the east the dark faded to a cold gray. Red shafts of light leapt above the black walls of the Emyn Muil far away upon their left. Dawn came clear and bright. A wind swept across their path, rushing through the bent grasses. Suddenly Shadowfax stood still and neighed. Gandalf pointed ahead. "Look!" he cried, and they lifted their tired eyes. Before them stood the mountains of the south, white-tipped and streaked with black. The grasslands rolled against the hills that clustered at their feet, and flowed up into many valleys still dim and dark, untouched by the light of dawn, winding their way into the heart of the great mountains. Immediately before the travelers, the widest of these glens opened like a long gulf among the hills. Far inward, they glimpsed a tumbled mountain mass with one tall peak. At the mouth of the vale, there stood like a sentinel a lonely height. About its feet there flowed as a thread of silver the stream that issued from the dale. Upon its brow they caught, still far away, a glint in the rising sun, a glimmer of gold.
"Speak, Legolas," said Gandalf. "Tell us what you see there before us."
Legolas gazed ahead, shading his eyes from the level shafts of the new-risen sun. "I see a white stream that comes down from the snows," he said. "Where it issues from the shadow of the vale, a green hill rises upon the east. A dike and mighty wall and thorny fence encircle it. Within there rise the roofs of houses, and in the midst, set upon a green terrace, there stands aloft a great hall of men, and it seems to my eyes that it is thatched with gold. The light of it shines far over the land. Golden, too, are the posts of its doors. There men in bright mail stand, but all else within the courts are yet asleep."
"Edoras, those courts are called," said Gandalf, "and Medgiseld is that golden hall. There dwells Theoden, son of Thengel, king of the Mark of Rohan."
Now, often when reading the books, we keep moving from here, especially because we know how amazing the rest of this chapter is. But I want us to stop and look back at the detail here so that we can get a better understanding of how Edoras is situated. First, the plains between Fangorn and the White Mountains are clearly huge. I mean, it took them all of yesterday afternoon, through the night with very little rest, and it was after dawn before they even saw the mountains approaching. And if I read the scale correctly, it looks like it's a distance of about 125 miles or so. Now, with that in mind, as the riders head south across the plains, they do finally see the White Mountains in front of them. That's the east-west range of peaks that lies at the south of Rohan. The grasslands flow up into the valleys and dales of the mountain range, and it's one of those that marks out Edoras. Look again. The widest of these glens opened like a long gulf among the hills. Far inward, they glimpsed a tumbled mountain mass. Okay, folks, that glen is Harrowdale, and the mountain mass is the Starkhorn. Then we read that they see a hill standing out in front like a sentinel, with a river at its feet. That river is the Snowbourn. And then Legolas tells us the rest. The stream coming down from the snowmelt in the mountains, a hill at the opening to the vale with a dike, wall, and fence surrounding it, and a settlement inside with a great hall. Gandalf reminds us that the king of Rohan dwells there, making it the capital. But it wasn't always the capital. When Eorl the Young first established the Mark, the capital of Rohan was further east in Aldburg. Medgiseld was finished in 2569 by Brego, Eorl's son, and that's when the capital was moved. 59 years after the Mark was established, and some 450 years before this time. Now that you have a better picture of the lay of the land here, as our guys head south towards Edoras, it's time to get a closer view of the city. The morning was bright and clear about them, and birds were singing when the travelers came to the stream. It ran down swiftly into the plain, and beyond the feet of the hills, turned across their path in a wide bend, flowing away east to feed the Entwash far off in its reed-choked beds. The land was green. In the wet meads and along the grassy borders of the stream grew many willow trees. Already in this southern land they were blushing red at their fingertips, feeling the approach of spring. Over the stream there was a ford between low banks, much trampled by the passage of horses. The travelers passed over and came upon a wide, rutted track leading towards the uplands. Now here we get a clearer description of the Snowbourn, making its way into the plain to join the Entwash. We also get an image of the land approaching the city. It's green, there are meads and willow trees along the approach that are just beginning to bloom for spring. And then there's a ford on the stream that's clearly well used, along with a track that also leads past the city towards the valley itself. Folks, that wraps it up for this Middle-earth Map Monday. Join me next week as we take a look at the Great Mounds, the gates of Edoras, and with any luck, hopefully, the Hall of Medgiseld itself. Now, one of these series, I'll get back to Mailbag Monday, so if you have any questions, email them to barlaman@theprancingponypodcast.com, and be sure to let Barlaman know your question is for today's Tolkien Times. To those of you who support the TTT on Patreon, thank you. Your support gives me the ability to invest the time and resources into writing and recording these episodes. Now, if you're not yet supporting the show, please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes. You can join the TTT Content Council, get an input on what it is I talk about each time, get a bonus episode every week, and more. And then join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Turin Bar Tuesday. Podcast listeners, please be sure to subscribe to the TTT in your podcast apps. For those on YouTube, subscribe to the channel to get all of the PPP productions, including my new streaming project, PPP Plays. And everybody, please be following @PrancingPonyPod on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.